So I'm going to let you in on one of the world's best kept secrets. A beautiful pipeline that basically everybody on the planet except for me is going to ignore. And I got to shout this out because somebody in Zealand's stream, who of course, again, can't emphasize this enough, completely different person from me, pointed me in this direction. Because we, as the fans of Zealand, spend the first part of Zealand streams talking about the world of football, going over results, talking about different things. So if you want kind of a live Zealandism experience, because Zealand does it pretty well too, then the first parts of those streams are fantastic before he starts playing Kingdom Come Deliverance. But I really wish he was playing Football Manager. Kind of ridiculous that he thinks anybody would watch him mix potions for 3 hours on Kingdom Come Deliverance, but I've been told it's something akin to alchemy ASMR. That's neither here nor there. What is here and there is the fact that on the Kyrgyzstani national team, there is a very interesting movement brewing, a movement that is now in its second generation. Now, Kyrgyzstan is the sort of country that for a while was not relevant as an international team at all. Hold on. I'm going to pull up their performances. Obviously, they were part of the USSR for a long time, but it took Kyrgyzstan a little while to get off the ground as a national team, right? They did not make the Asian Cup until the 2019 edition, right? They've been able to attempt to qualify for it since 1996. They never made it. But in 2019, they made it and they got to the final 16. And then in the 2023 edition, they made it again. And they did get knocked out in the group stage. But what's important to take away from this is that it took Kyrgyzstan about 20 years to kind of get its federation together, get its league together after leaving the Soviet Union. But now that that's done, they do have a pretty good national team. And as a result, if we look at World Cup qualifying, they are farther into this World Cup qualifying process than they've ever gone before. They've played, as you can see, 13 matches here. And that means that they've finally made it to the last round of Asian World Cup qualifying, which they'd never made it to before. Now, it's not going particularly well. I'm not going to pretend that Kyrgyzstan is going to make the World Cup. If you watch my World Cup qualifying review, Kyrgyzstan is functionally eliminated. If they win their last 3 matches, they could end up on 12 points, which would be higher than the UAE or Qatar if they win none of their last 3 matches. So that it is theoretically possible. But they've lost 6 of their 7 matches. Their only win is against North Korea, who is below them. But considering how little everybody knows about Kyrgyzstan, right? The fact that they are largely considered to be fully football irrelevant, they strike me as the type of team that is maybe like an Equatorial Guinea, a little worse, right? A type of team that's never made the World Cup, but if you think about their continental competitions, they're relevant. They're a team that you have to deal with, and they're a team that if they play against the teams that are not as good in Asia, or in Equatorial Guinea's case in Africa, they're going to beat them. They're going to beat them pretty consistently. And there has been a part of that perhaps you weren't expecting, because somebody hopped into Zealand's chat on stream and said, hey, did you know that Kyrgyzstan has a black player? And that's interesting to me. As a lover of history and all these sorts of things, I know that all of the Central Asian countries have very low immigration, right? Being a part of the USSR for a long time has a lot to do with that, but they are also countries that were determined as the USSR broke up by these kind of states, these ethnic states. The Kyrgyz live in Kyrgyzstan. The Uzbeks live in Uzbekistan. Obviously, there's some overlap. There's some Russian descendant people that live there, right? And you can usually tell the difference. Like, it's a bit of a hodgepodge of a national team between the different nationalities in that area. But there really is no historical reason for that type of immigration. So that piqued my interest, right? And what I uncovered was there is a whole cadre of specifically Ghanaian players that play and live. They played in Kyrgyzstan, played for the Kyrgyzstan national team, and live in Kyrgyzstan. Now, the first person that came up for me was a guy named Daniel Tago. Now, Daniel Tago is going to paint the picture of all of the other guys that we're going to be talking about, including one who is a star for the national team right now. Because if you ever happen to tune into Asian qualifying and see Kyrgyzstan, or the Asian Cup and see Kyrgyzstan, you're going to see at least one, maybe a couple of Ghanaian dudes there. But Tago in 2007 signed for Dordoy Bishkek, okay? Now, this is part of a very, very sketchy, shady practice that goes on in, the world of football recruiting. It involves agents and bringing young kids to different countries to maybe give them an opportunity. So Daniel Tago is 17 years old when he is brought to Russia to play from Ghana, right? There is no real detail given about that, and the only source we can find for this, which is Wikipedia, right? He is brought to Russia, and he plays in the Russian league for 4 years, at which point he is recognized by scouts in Kyrgyzstan. And in 2007, he joins Dardoy Bishkek. And for 9 years, Daniel Tago plays for Dardoy Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan. He gets Kyrgyzstani citizenship, which most countries in the world, if you live there for 9 years and learn to speak the language, you will get citizenship in that country. You know, if you're there, especially as an athlete with the appropriate work permits and everything. He won Kyrgyzstan Player of the Year, right? And he won multiple. I think I can find that here. He won 6 Kyrgyzstan League titles, 4 Kyrgyzstan Cups, 4 Kyrgyzstan Super Cups, and the 2007 AFC President's Cup, whatever the hell that means, right? He won all of these things while he was playing at Dardoy Bishkek. And he's bounced around since, but you can see in his personal life that he married his Kyrgyz girlfriend, Elnira Ozbayeva, and they had their first child in August of 2016. Football as a means of immigration to different places is not something that is thought about as much in Europe. But if you look in Asia, if you look in South America, you will see guys like this that pop up, particularly in some very obscure footballing outposts like Kyrgyzstan. This guy who was born in Ghana has just made his life here. He became a very high-level professional footballer. And of course, by 2014, he appeared for Kyrgyzstan. Right? And he was not the only one. This is how I uncovered that there were more. They linked other African-born players that had done the same thing. These people recruiting to help elevate the Kyrgyzstan League, they're not just getting players from Central Asia and Russia here. They're looking to Africa where there is a ton of cheap talent that you can then bring in to try and make your team better. I just got to point out the fact that apparently Daniel Tago is the son of a crown prince of a Ghanaian tribe. Not even that kept him in Ghana. He's vibing. He currently plays for Dushanbe 83, according to all the things I can find in the Tajikistan League. So he's hanging out with the Tajiks right now, but he is a Kyrgyzstan national team member. He's fading out of that, obviously. He's 39 years old. But then there's David Tete. David Tete moved to Central Asia in 2006. Very, very similar trajectory as Tago. He played 1 season in Tajikistan and then moved to Kyrgyzstan in 2007. Played with Dardoy Bishkek. He was playing there at the same time that Daniel Tago was playing there. He won all of the same trophies. And by 2014, he was into the AFC Challenge Cup team with Kyrgyzstan. He ended up making 14 caps for Kyrgyzstan over a 2-year international career. And he registered in his career at least 100 goals in the Kyrgyzstan League in Cup. He is somebody that played a big role in Kyrgyzstan. And guess what he's doing now? The man, 39 years old, born in Ghana, is a coach of Dardoy Bishkek. He's on the coaching staff for the club. There is a serious Ghanaian influence in football in this country. Then there's Elijah Ari, who's 37 and made 8 appearances for the Kyrgyzstan national team. He moved into Kyrgyzstan to play for Dardoy Bishkek in 2007 at the age of 20. And perhaps most insane, the guy from Limbe, Cameroon, Desiree Koum, who would go on to make 13 appearances for Kyrgyzstan. Koum was abandoned in Moscow at age 17 by a rogue agent that disappeared once they had arrived in Russia. After a while in Moscow, Maka Koum went on trial and signed for Ilikevets Mariupol. Eventually, he ended up at Dardoy Bishkek in 2005, where he played from 2005 to 2009, then again in 2012 and in 2013. And he would go on to make those 13 appearances for Kyrgyzstan. This guy was from Limbe, Cameroon, but this is why I'm kind of talking about this being a sketchy thing, because you basically have an agent that comes in saying, hey, I think I can get you a professional contract here, brought the 17-year-old kid from Cameroon to Russia, and then abandoned him. And he still was able to get a trial with a team and find his way into being an international footballer for Kyrgyzstan right around the time that the national team was just starting to grow. And that brings us to today, where Joel Kojo is the star forward for the Kyrgyzstan national team. And his club career started in Kyrgyzstan. He was born in 1998. He's 26 years old. And in 2017, he pops up with his first major professional contract at Alay in Kyrgyzstan. He eventually moves to the big giants Dardoy Bishkek, and he has since gotten his nationality. You know, he got there in 2017. He's able to play for Kyrgyzstan in 2023. He already has 23 caps and 10 goals. And in their most recent qualifier for Kyrgyzstan, which was a 1-0 loss to Uzbekistan in a very important match where they still only lost 1-0 after getting a red card in the 24th minute, there's Joel Kojo. He's playing with the rest of the Kyrgyzstan national team. He's obviously been a tremendous player in the Kyrgyz league. He now plays at Istiklal, which is one of the biggest teams in Iran, after putting up, I believe that is 55 goals in 5 years in the Kyrgyz league and getting his Kyrgyzstan citizenship. But that's 5 players. I'm sure there's more. Those are just the 5 that I could track down that have come from Africa, mostly from Ghana, to play for the Kyrgyzstan national team, to coach and live in Kyrgyzstan. It's awesome. I think this sort of thing is great. If you live in a country for 5 years, you absolutely should be able to play for it. Anybody that says otherwise doesn't understand the idea of being able to move around to different countries and maybe learning a language and feeling like, hey, I want to play and represent, play for and represent these people that gave me the opportunity to play professional football. Or in the case of somebody like Daniel Tago, gave me my wife and my kid. Right? This is cool, and it's a very, very interesting part of the footballing underworld that nobody ever really gets to talk about, but this was just such a shining example of it. I wanted to talk about it. So hopefully you thought it was cool too.